Human women screamed and men yelled as John Phillips was forced onto the alien transport shuttle, boarding pass in hand, shipping off to become the universe's first human male escort at the prestigious Galactic Academy. The 16-year-old's hands shook as the ship lifted off, hurtling toward a fate he never asked for on the desolate moon of Xyrox. It had all happened so fast. First contact, the Galactic Treaty, the student exchange program that no one on Earth actually thought would come to pass. But before he knew what was happening, before he could protest or ask for further details, government agents had shown up on his family's doorstep, randomly selected him, and now here he was, humanity's guinea pig, a token of goodwill and cultural exchange with their new extraterrestrial allies. John's stomach churned as the ship broke free of Earth's atmosphere and stars filled the viewports. He'd heard the rumors, read the articles speculating about what awaited the first human student beyond the stars, but he'd never imagined he would be the one to find out, that he would be offered up to the galaxy's powerful elite like a lamb to the slaughter. John's heart raced as he burst through the doors of the lecture hall, mere seconds before class was set to begin. As he scanned the room for an empty seat, he felt the weight of dozens of curious and hostile stares from his alien classmates. He spotted an open spot in the back row and quickly slunk over, trying to ignore the whispers and glares. As he settled into his seat, John noticed Pryla sitting a few rows ahead. The Zorgonian shot him a withering glare before turning back to face the front of the room. John's stomach twisted. Great, just what he needed, his roommate from hell in the same class. The professor, a tall, spindly creature with purple skin and 4 arms, strode to the podium. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Xyloth, and this is Advanced Wormhole Metrics. Let's begin. John tried to focus as Dr. Xyloth launched into a complex lecture on the mathematical principles governing wormhole travel. But within minutes, he was hopelessly lost. The equations on the screen looked like hieroglyphics to him. As his mind wandered, John's gaze drifted to a trio of attractive female aliens with iridescent blue skin sitting nearby. Nirians, if he remembered correctly from his species orientation. The girls kept sneaking glances at him and giggling behind their hands. John felt his face grow warm. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Xyloth dismissed the class. John gathered his things, eager to escape before Pryla could corner him. But as he stood to leave, the 3 Nerian girls approached his desk. Hi there, the tallest one said, batting her long lashes at him. I'm Lyra, this is Mina and Cora. We couldn't help but notice you're the only human in this class. Yeah, John said, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm John. Mina traced a finger along his arm, her touch electric against his skin. We just love exotic males, she cooed. Cora leaned in, her ample cleavage straining against her uniform. Maybe we could study together sometime. We'd love to learn more about human anatomy. John's mouth went dry. He stammered, his face burning as he tried to come up with a response. Thanks, but I really need to get going. Mumbling excuses, John practically fled the lecture hall, leaving the pouting Nerian girls behind. His heart pounded as he navigated the maze-like corridors, finally ducking into the campus library. The musty smell of books and quiet atmosphere calmed his nerves. This is more like it, he thought. As John browsed the stacks, a familiar title caught his eye. Asimov, a human classic. He couldn't believe they had human books here. John reached out to grab it, but another hand brushed against his, a green, scaly hand. John turned to see a short, pudgy alien that looked like a cross between a lizard and a toad peering up at him. The saurian's bulbous eyes, magnified to a comical degree behind thick Coke bottle glasses, gleamed with excitement. "Sir Human, I'm so pleased to make your acquaintance." The alien pumped John's hand vigorously. "I'm Gronk, xenobiology major. I have so many questions. Your species is fascinating." Nice to meet you," John said, trying to extract his hand from the saurian's enthusiastic grip. "I'm John." "John, yes, how wonderful." Gronk practically vibrated with glee. You must allow me to pick your brain in a figurative sense, of course. Come, let's go study." Before John could protest, Gronk had latched onto his arm and was dragging him towards a table piled high with massive biology tomes. For such a small alien, he had a surprisingly strong grip. As Gronk plopped John down into a chair and whipped out a notepad, the Saurian fixed him with an intense, unblinking stare. "Now I'm very curious about human mating habits. Your reproductive system is so inefficient and bizarre. Tell me, is it true that you actually insert your gamete delivery organ into the female? How does it fit? And the female constructs an entire new human inside her body. Revolting, yet fascinating." John's face flushed crimson as Gronk pelted him with increasingly invasive questions, scribbling furiously all the while. It was going to be a long study session. John's head spun as he finally managed to extricate himself from Gronk's uncomfortably personal interrogation. He stumbled out of the library, his mind reeling from the Saurian's invasive questions about human mating habits. All he wanted was to collapse into his bed and forget this bizarre day ever happened. He trudged towards the transit station, his feet dragging with exhaustion. But as he approached the platform, his heart sank. The last shuttle to the city had already departed, leaving the station deserted. John groaned, running a hand through his hair. Great. Just great. Now what was he supposed to do? With a sigh of resignation, John turned and made his way to the campus quad. At this hour it was empty, the grounds illuminated only by the soft glow of the twin moons overhead. John spotted a bench beneath a towering alien tree and flopped down onto it. It wasn't exactly comfortable, but it would have to do. Using his backpack as a pillow, John closed his eyes and tried to ignore the hard wooden slats digging into his back. Sleep proved elusive, his mind too wired from the day's strange events. But eventually sheer exhaustion won out, and John drifted off into a fitful slumber. He awoke with a start to the sound of excited chattering and the snap of camera shutters. John blinked blearily against the bright sunlight, struggling to get his bearings. As his vision cleared, he saw a crowd of students gawking at him, their eyes wide with fascination. Several held up communicators, snapping photos of him like he was some sort of zoo exhibit. "What the hell?" John muttered, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. He was used to getting some stares, being the only human on campus, but this was extreme. Was sleeping on a bench really that interesting to these aliens? Feeling incredibly awkward under the weight of so many curious gazes, John grabbed his backpack and hurried off towards his first class of the day, quantum mechanics. He kept his head down as he walked, trying to ignore the whispers and giggles that followed in his wake. As he neared the science building, a pack of canid girls suddenly materialized out of nowhere, surrounding him. They panted heavily, their fluffy tails wagging, as they shoved strange, wiggly tentacle plants and scraps of paper with communicator codes scribbled on them into his hands. "Call me, John," one girl yipped, her tongue lolling. "I'll make it worth your while." "No, call me," another growled, shoving her way forward. "I saw him first." John stared at them in bewilderment, his arms full of bizarre alien flora and phone numbers. Thanks, but I really need to get to class," he stammered, trying to edge past them. The canids whined and pressed closer, their clawed hands starting to paw at his clothes. John's eyes widened in alarm. This aggressive flirting was about to turn physical if he didn't get out of there fast. Spotting a gap in the furry wall of females, John made a break for it. He wriggled free of their grasping hands and tentacle plants and sprinted for the science building, the canids howling forlornly behind him. John burst through the doors of the lecture hall, his heart pounding. He spotted an empty desk and collapsed into it, struggling to catch his breath. That was close. Way too close. All he wanted was to avoid any more awkward, overly forward alien attention. But apparently the universe had other plans, because a moment later, a sultry, purring voice sounded right next to his ear. Well, look what the canid dragged in, the famous John Phillips himself." John turned slowly, a sense of dread growing in the pit of his stomach. His eyes widened as he saw the speakers, Staring back at him were the famous Bastet twins, Nephra and Sapphira, the most popular and desired girls on campus. The leonine beauties sauntered towards him from either side, their movements graceful and predatory. They were tall and slender, their golden skin dappled with dark rosettes. Their slitted, amber eyes glinted with mischief as they approached, and their long tails swayed hypnotically behind them. John gulped nervously as Nephra and Sapphira reached his desk. They leaned in close, their soft tawny fur brushing against his skin. Low, rumbling purrs vibrated in their throats. "We've had our eye on you for a while now, human," Nephra purred, tracing a clawed finger along John's jaw. "Such an exotic male. We've been looking for a new plaything." "And we always get what we want," Sapphira added, her tail curling possessively around John's leg under the desk. At the twins' brazen touch, a chorus of jealous snarls and lustful chirps erupted around the classroom as the other students reacted to their staking of a claim. John felt his face burn, his stomach twisting into knots. This could not be happening. He had to get out of here before things escalated even further. Bolting up from his seat, John shouldered his backpack and made a beeline for the door, leaving the pouting Bastet twins in his wake. He didn't stop until he reached the relative safety of the hallway, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But his relief was short-lived. No sooner had he paused to collect himself than he heard the slap of webbed feet on the tile behind him. John turned just in time to see Gronk barreling towards him, his bulbous eyes shining with excitement behind his Coke bottle glasses. "John, you must see this!" the Saurian exclaimed, latching onto John's arm with a surprisingly strong grip for such a pudgy alien. Come! Before John could protest, Gronk dragged him over to a nearby information terminal mounted on the wall. With a dramatic flourish, the Saurian pulled up the Academy's social media feed. John felt his stomach drop into his shoes. There, plastered across the screen for all to see, was an image of him sleeping on the quad bench, his face slack and mouth hanging open, and emblazoned above it in lurid pink text was the headline, "Sleeping Prince Charming Seeks Cuddle Buddy." John stared at his own picture in abject horror, his cheeks flaming red. So that's why everyone had been gawking and taking photos. Oh God, he was never going to live this down. Gronk, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with glee beside him. "Isn't it wonderful, John? You're the most desirable male on campus now. Everyone wants a piece of the elusive human. And you picked the perfect time to catch their eye. Do you know what's about to start? Mating season." John slowly turned to face Gronk, his expression a mask of dawning dread. "Mating season," he repeated weakly. Gronk nodded eagerly, his head bobbing on his thin neck. "Oh yes. For the next few weeks the females will be extra aggressive in their courtship displays. Expect lots of scent marking, mating dances, and maybe even a duel or two as they fight for the privilege of breeding with you." The Saurian sighed dreamily. To be fought over by a bevy of beautiful females. You're so lucky, John." John didn't feel lucky. He felt like he'd just been thrown to a pack of hungry wolves, alien wolves in heat. As if summoned by Gronk's words, a group of mixed female students rounded the corner at the end of the hall. Their eyes locked onto John, glinting with predatory interest. A cacophony of lustful alien sounds filled the air. Chirps, howls, hisses and growls all blended into a horny, terrifying din. John didn't hesitate. He ran, fleeing down the corridor as fast as his legs could carry him, a multi-species horde of pheromone-addled co-eds hot on his heels. The chase was on. John slunk through the deserted corridors, his head down and his heart heavy. He couldn't face another day of being gawked at, pawed, and treated like a prize to be won. He needed to get away, to clear his head and figure out his next move. His feet carried him to the old observatory on the outskirts of campus. It had been abandoned for years, and John figured it was the perfect place to hide out and avoid his adoring public. He slipped inside, the musty smell of disuse filling his nostrils. John picked his way through the dusty equipment and settled himself on a creaky stool. Through the cracked viewport he could see the alien sky stretching out before him, the stars arranged in unfamiliar patterns. He sighed, feeling more lost and alone than ever. "What am I even doing here?" John muttered. "I don't belong in this freak show." "Feeling sorry for yourself, Phillips?" A snide voice cut through the darkness. "Not enjoying your new celebrity status?" John whirled around to see Pryler leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed and a cruel smirk on his reptilian face. "What do you want, Pryler?" John snapped. "Here to mock me some more, or are you just pissed that I'm stealing your thunder as the campus stud?" Pryler let out a harsh bark of laughter. "Hardly. I just find it amusing to see you squirm. Not so fun being reduced to a piece of meat, is it?" John clenched his fists, his frustration boiling over. "Why? Why is everyone suddenly obsessed with me? I'm just a guy, not some carnival attraction." Pryler pushed off the wall and sauntered closer, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. "Oh, you naive little monkey. You really don't get it, do you? You're the only human here. A rare, exotic commodity. Having you on their arm is the ultimate status symbol." He leaned in, his fetid breath hot on John's face. "You think you got in here on your own merits? Please. You're a diversity hire, filling some bullshit quota, and now you're nothing more than a shiny trophy for these social climbing skanks to fight over." John reeled back as if slapped, Pryler's words hitting him like a punch to the gut. Is that really all he was? A token? A prize? Not a person, but a thing to be collected and shown off? White-hot rage surged through him. Before he knew what he was doing, John's fist shot out, slamming into Pryler's smug snout with a sickening crunch. The Saurian staggered back, clutching his face as blue blood gushed between his clawed fingers. "Fuck you," John snarled, "and fuck this place. I'm done." He stormed out of the observatory, leaving a cursing Pryler in his wake. John marched across campus, his mind made up. He was dropping out, going home. This whole thing had been a mistake. He never should have come here. John reached the quad and headed for his bench to grab his stuff, but he pulled up short when he saw a familiar figure already sitting there. Gronk looked up at him, John's bags at his feet, and a sorrowful expression on his pudgy face. "What are you doing here, Gronk?" John asked wearily. "Come to ogle the dancing monkey one last time before I split?" Gronk shook his head, his eyes shining with regret behind his thick lenses. "No, John, I came to apologize. The way I treated you when we first met, the way everyone has been treating you, it's not right. I see that now." The Saurian stood, wringing his hands. "I got so caught up in my own excitement, my own selfish desire to study you, that I forgot you're a person, not a specimen, and I'm sorry. Truly sorry." John felt some of his anger drain away at Gronk's sincere words. At least one person here saw him as more than a walking, talking human dildo. "I appreciate that, Gronk," John said, "but it doesn't change the fact that I don't belong here. I'm dropping out, going back to Earth. Maybe I can salvage some dignity there." Gronk's bulbous eyes widened in alarm. "No, John, you can't. Please don't let the shallow, small-minded masses drive you away. You have so much to offer this place beyond your species." The Saurian placed a tentative hand on John's arm. "Think of the humans who fought for your right to be here, who believed in what your presence could achieve. If you quit now, you'll be letting them down." John hesitated, Gronk's plea hitting home. As much as he wanted to run, to escape the humiliation and objectification, he knew the little alien was right. This was bigger than him. He was here to represent humanity, to prove that his people deserved a seat at the galactic table. And he'd be damned if he let a bunch of horny co-eds and speciesist assholes ruin that. John took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I'll stay, I'll tough it out, but I'm done being a piece of meat. From now on, I'm going to make them see me as a sentient being, not a sex toy." Gronk beamed up at him, his face splitting into a grin. "That's the spirit, John, and I'll be right there with you, supporting you every step of the way." Together, the human and the Saurian gathered up John's things and began the trek back to the heart of campus. John squared his shoulders, steeling himself for the challenges to come. He knew it wouldn't be easy, facing down the hungry looks and grasping hands. But he was determined to stay, to fight, for his place at the academy, for his right to be seen as an equal, for himself and for the future of human-alien relations. The road ahead would be hard, with no guarantee of success, but as John walked alongside his first true friend in this strange, bewildering place, he felt a flicker of hope. He could do this, he had to. One small step for John, one giant leap for mankind. John's head hung low as he trudged across the quad with Gronk at his side. The weight of the challenges ahead pressed down on his shoulders, but he knew he couldn't run from this fight. For himself, for humanity, he had to. A sudden gust of wind whipped at John's hair. He looked up, squinting against the glare of the sun, to see a sleek black shuttle descending from the sky. It was emblazoned with the insignia of the Galactic Council, the stylized starburst and orbiting planets unmistakable. The shuttle touched down mere feet in front of them, the downdraft from its engines nearly knocking John off his feet. Gronk steadied him with a scaly hand, his bulbous eyes wide behind his Coke bottle glasses. The shuttle door hissed open, and out stepped an austere Arcturian in flowing formal robes. His blue skin was lined with age, and his eyes were hard as flint as they locked onto John. "John Phillips," the Arcturian said, his voice a cold rasp. "I am High Commissioner Xyloth, overseer of this academy. I'm afraid I have some bad news for you." John's stomach dropped. He exchanged a worried glance with Gronk before facing Xyloth. What is it, sir?" Xyloth clasped his long-fingered hands before him. "Your admission to the academy was part of a social experiment to test the galactic community's readiness to integrate humans, and I'm sorry to say it has been a resounding failure." "What?" John sputtered. "But I've been trying my best to fit in, to prove that humans—" "Your best hasn't been good enough," Xyloth cut him off. "Your inability to assimilate, the disruptive influence your presence has caused, it's clear that humans are not ready to join the galactic stage." The Commissioner's words hit John like a punch to the gut. He opened his mouth to protest, but Xyloth silenced him with a sharp gesture. "Effective immediately. You are expelled from the academy and banned from council space indefinitely. Please come with me." Xyloth gripped John's arm, his fingers digging in painfully as he steered the stunned human towards the waiting shuttle. John's feet stumbled over the grass, his mind reeling. "Say, wait, please, you can't do this." John found his voice struggling against Xyloth's iron grasp. "I have rights, "You have no rights here," Xyloth snapped. "You're not one of us, you never will be." The Commissioner shoved John up the ramp. As the door started to seal shut behind them, John caught a glimpse of Gronk's stricken face. The Saurian was banging on the viewport, his mouth moving, yelling something John couldn't hear. Then the shuttle was rocketing up, the academy grounds rapidly shrinking below them until they vanished into the swirling clouds. John pressed his forehead against the cool glass, his breath fogging the pain. Earth. They had to be taking him back to Earth. But as the blue curve of the planet fell away behind them, and the vast expanse of space opened up, a numb realization crept over John. They weren't heading for Sul. They were heading for the border. The shuttle shuddered as it docked with a remote outpost, little more than a drab grey cylinder, spinning slowly at the edge of council territory. Xyloth hauled John out, frog-marching him down featureless corridors until they reached a small, bare room. A cell, John realized, as a force field shimmered to life across the doorway. Xyloth shoved him inside, where he stumbled and nearly fell on the hard metal floor. "The Council has classified humans as a disruptive, non-sentient species," Xyloth said, sneering down at John through the flickering barrier. "You will be the last human allowed beyond the Sol system, a fitting end to a failed experiment." The Commissioner turned on his heel and strode away. A slot opened in the wall and a tray slid out, bearing a flimsy blanket and a bowl of grey, unappetizing nutrient sludge. The slot snapped shut with a cold clang. John sank down on the narrow bench, his head falling into his hands. Alone in his barren cell, the weight of his failure crashed over him. He'd let everyone down. His family, his planet. They'd all been counting on him. And now, The dreams of his species to join the galactic community lay shattered at his feet. What would become of him now? Would he rot here forever, a shameful relic of humanity's hubris? Or would they dissect him, pull him apart to see what made humans tick? A knotted tangle of despair and self-loathing tightened in John's chest. Hot tears pricked at his eyes. Some ambassador he'd turned out to be. Suddenly an alarm blared, the sound stabbing through John's head. The deck shuddered beneath him as a muffled explosion echoed through the outpost. Shouts and running feet sounded in the corridor outside. John leaped up as smoke began to curl under the cell door, thickening with each passing second. A dark silhouette appeared in the haze, backlit by the crackling orange force field. A familiar silhouette, lean and reptilian. "Tryler?" John asked incredulously, hardly daring to believe his eyes. The Saurian grinned, his sharp teeth glinting as he stepped through the shimmering barrier, the force field sparking and shorting out around him. He had the limp body of a guard slung over one shoulder. "In the flesh," Pryler said. He dumped the unconscious Saurian unceremoniously on the floor with a heavy thud. John gaped at him. "What? How? Why are you here?" Pryler crossed the cell in 2 quick strides and grabbed John by the shoulders. His clawed fingers dug in, but there was no malice in his fierce yellow eyes. "Because you made me realize something," Pryler said, his voice a low, urgent growl. "You made me see that humans deserve better than to be a novelty or an experiment. My people were once dismissed by the Council, just like yours are being dismissed now." The Saurian's gaze hardened with determination. "But we didn't let that stop us, and neither will you. We outcasts have to stick together. It's time to show the galaxy what we can really do." Pryler held out a hand, his scales shimmering in the smoke and flashing emergency lights. "Are you with me, John?" John stared at the proffered hand for a long moment. Then slowly a grin spread across his face. He reached out and clasped Pryler's hand firmly in his. "Let's do this." Together, the human and the Saurian plunged into the smoke-filled corridor, leaving the wreckage of the old order smoldering behind them. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.